Hey, something along those lines with Airbnb and stuff like that, like with so Airbnb, the Ubers of the world. I think in this region and many other regions too, there is pushback about stuff like this, business tax. Should you have a taxi system and Uber and things like that? How and maybe you weren't here at the chamber yet or something like that, but how does a chamber kind of support or not support something like that that's new and innovative that hasn't historically been something? Because I think we're going to continue to see that in the future with things that you wouldn't expect,
well,
but then become huge unicorns.
Especially as we try to attract the younger generation, that's just part of their everyday life.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a delicate balance at times. And it's to be totally blunt, it's why I'm on the membership side and Emily Reynolds is on the governmental affairs side. But it is a balance, and it even changes. That is a good example where no matter how collaborative we are, there are still 5 separate Southside cities, and within each of those cities, there's still a separate city government, a separate mayor, separate city council. So those decisions are really being decided by those elected officials within those specific municipalities. And then how we do or don't advocate based on what those policies are really, again, goes back to the feedback we're getting from the business community from the standpoint of what is best for the business community and how do we learn to continue to adapt as we move forward. And it's just something, it's very, very fluid because that's a perfect example of something that it changes from different municipalities. I mean, the way someone may be responding to those short-term rentals, say in Sandbridge, compared to someone who's in a what might be considered a traditional neighborhood in, say, Ghent or even parts of Chesapeake, may be completely different. And that's where Emily and Brian and the team that we work with from a advocacy standpoint really kind of have to look at that and work with the different communities to figure out what's best for the business community and specifically what's best for the business community within those specific municipalities. But you're absolutely right. I mean, as with most things, you have to kind of learn to adapt because things change. I mean, a perfect example in Norfolk was scooters. I mean, I went to Dallas a few years back and scooters were everywhere. I mean, it's just a standard way to get around town. Right. And when scooters first got brought up in the 757, I mean, people were freaking out. I mean, people are going to get hurt. They're going to fall off scooters. They're going to be running into people. Right. But the reality is, if you look at downtown Norfolk, I mean, maybe there's an anecdotal story somewhere that may prove me wrong, but for the large part, I haven't seen a lot of issues with them. People seem to be using them. They seem to be effective. It's a great final mile tool for a lot of our constituents.
I mean, the biggest thing that I just keep on going back to is just the fact that the number one conversation that's talked about is attracting and retaining the younger talent.
Yes.
But yet we make the younger talent wants to be able to go to food trucks. They want to be able to use Uber. They want to be able to Airbnbs. Yeah, they're just that's part of their DNA. And it's just like we're biting the hand that feeds us. It's like until we adopt the things that are going to attract that younger and new talent, we're going to continue to be stuck in this do loop and be in the same situation.
I mean, even if there was bad things with scooters or whatever we're talking about, right? Those are outliers in most cases. Yes, bad things happen at hotels. Bad things happen at strangers' houses. People will get hurt on scooters. It also says wear a helmet. You know, there's a lot of things in these situations. And so I think it's kind of like it's like, don't say it, but don't just say it and then actually just get out of the way and make these things happen, because otherwise people are getting so angry about stupid things, in my opinion, that just like, okay, you know what? And most of the time, these scooters that everyone was probably pushing around about, like, no, I never see anyone on those things. So like, you're worrying about things that are so irrelevant. It's just like, who cares?
Yeah. And that's got to put it. I mean, I get it for you, Tage. I mean, it puts the chamber in a tough spot because you're trying to manage both sides, you know, and it's just so
Yeah.
That's definitely
Well,
very
and that's why we do what we do. I mean, because you're absolutely right. There are times where you look at a topic and you think this seems like it should be an easy thing. But the reality is, when you're talking about legislative topics, when you're talking about business topics, when you're talking about just leadership in general, for every topic, there's a million different personalities and a million different theories. There's a million different perceptions as to whether that particular issue is a positive or a negative issue. It's why we have elections. It's why we have teams like ours that I don't want to say pick a side, but that advocate on behalf of. And in our particular case, we're advocating on behalf of the business community. Is that always going to align with the community at whole? Maybe, maybe not. But